Hello and welcome to the Business Standard Morning Show. I'm Veenu Sandhu. First up, the news of the day. Has life come full circle for the Nanda family of escorts? Existing investor Kubota Corporation is said to be in talks to become a controlling shareholder of the tractor manufacturer. Let's take a look at what it stands to gain and what this means for the Nanda family.
Japanese agriculture and heavy equipment company Kubota Corporation is reportedly in talks with the promoters of Indian tractor manufacturer Escorts to increase its holding and ultimately become the controlling shareholder. Kubota currently holds a 9.1% stake in Escorts, which it acquired last year through a preferential allotment. Kubota's interest in Escorts also come after a joint venture started production of tractors last year. The Japanese company is looking to double down on the world's largest tractor market, just as demand is starting to pick up after the COVID-19 induced lockdowns. Escorts generated a profit of Rs 872 crore in FY21 on a revenue of just over 7,000 crore rupees. It operates 9 factories to manufacture equipment across 3 sectors and boasts an employee base of more than 11,000. The family of Chairman and Managing Director Nikhil Nanda owned almost 37% of Escorts at the end of June. This stake is currently valued at Rs 7,500 crore. Reports suggest that Kubota may initially acquire a 15% stake from the Nanda family before buying them out entirely. Escorts has termed these reports market speculation. Interestingly, Escorts was the target of a failed hostile takeover attempt in the 1980s when London-based Swaraj Paul tried to acquire it. Escorts at the time was a manufacturer of Rajdoot brand of motorcycles. Haryana-based Escorts is India's 4th largest tractor manufacturer. In FY21, it had a market share of 11.3%, behind Sonalika, TAFE and the Mahindra Group. Escorts also manufactures construction equipment and railway equipment. If the Kubota deal goes ahead, it would mean the end of a 77-year association between the Nanda family and Escorts. The Nanda family has been associated with Escorts since its founding in 1944 by Nikhil Nanda's grandfather Harprasad Nanda. Over the course of the company's history, Escorts has collaborated with Ford, Yamaha, JCB, Tadano, and finally Kubota. Can Kubota establish itself as a major force in the booming Indian tractor market? We have to see how its deal with the Nanda family unfolds.
Puneet Goenka, Chief Executive of Zee Entertainment Enterprises, keeps a smile both in good times and bad. The 46-year-old remained calm even when foreign investors tried to unseat him from the company his father Subhash Chandra founded. Now, Goenka's ability to stay at ease in difficult times is probably what helped Zee Entertainment rise from a financially stressed broadcaster to one of India's largest, steadiest, and most profitable media companies. Let's look at how this unflappable CEO is different.
It was in the year 2004 that Puneet Goenka joined Zee TV as its business head. Star Network was dominating the ratings at the time in viewership and ad spend, riding high on the success of Kaun Banega Crorepati and soaps like Kahani Ghar Ghar Ki and Kyunki Saas Bhi Kabhi Bahu Thi. During the same time, Zee TV was making the news for losing one CEO every year. That was also the time when former Times Group president Pradeep Guha joined Zee. One of the first shows put together by the new Guha Goenka team, Saath Fere, about a dark girl's travails in a color-conscious India, started airing on Zee TV in October 2005. Then came Kasam Se in January 2006. Both became hits and Zee began climbing up the charts. By December 2006, it was a clear and fresher number 2 in the Indian entertainment space. Its revenues were rising, and so too was its stock price. Star's audience share, meanwhile, continued to tumble. When Guha left in 2008, Goenka was named CEO. The sniggers were inevitable. Zee's turnaround was firmly attributed to Guha's acumen, since Goenka was just the owner's son. but he proved everyone wrong. Under him, Zee's consolidated revenue has grown from just over 1,950 crore rupees in 2008 to 7,700 crore rupees in 2021. Analysts call it a cash-spewing machine. So, when the company was under pressure from top investors for a management reshuffle, the Chandra Goenka father-son duo found a white knight in rival Sony. The transaction was expedited after one of the largest shareholders of Zee, Invesco, sought an extraordinary general meeting for the removal of Goenka within 3 weeks. Here are the details of the deal. Zee shareholders are to own a 47.07% stake in the merged entity and Sony India 52.93%. Sony India will invest $1.57 billion as growth capital and transfer 2% shares of the merged entity to the Subhash Chandra family as part of a non-compete pact. The Chandra family will own a 4% stake in the merged entity with the option to increase it to 20%, while Sony will appoint a majority of the directors on the board. Puneet Goenka will be the CEO and MD of the combined entity. But Goenka's woes seem to be far from over. Invesco, the largest shareholder with an 18% stake in Zee, is still gunning for him. Though it is saying it is not opposed to the company's proposed merger, it wants the new board to evaluate the deal as well as decide on future leadership. Let's now take a look at a timeline of events to understand the scheme of things. Invesco bought an 11% stake from the Chandra family on July 31st, 2019 and became the largest shareholder with an 18% stake. On September 11, 2021, it called for an EGM seeking the removal of 3 non-independent directors, including Puneet Goenka. The 2 non-independent directors quit 2 days later. Goenka did not. On September 22, 2021, Zee proposed a merger with Sony Pictures, with Goenka as the MD of the merged entity. The next day, Invesco said it remained firm on the EGM demand, but it was not against the proposed merger. While Puneet Goenka would have to carefully deal with the present situation, we spoke to Vanita Kohli Khandekar to know more about Goenka and how he is different from his father.
If Zee is having a great run on the ratings chart, he will smile. If Zee is having a bad run on the ratings chart or in some other areas of their business, he will again smile and say, "Dekhte hain." He's unflappable. And this was, mind you, this was when he was probably in his late 20s, early 30s is when I first met him. And over the years, I've seen that he remains even-tempered, whatever the events, whether they're, you remember, this is the man who set up the Broadcast Audience Research Council as chairman. He was one of the founding chairmen. He's done the Media Pro deal with Star. I mean, Star was a long-term rival and he got together with them. So he's as different from his dad. And he says that, 4, 5, 6 years back when I interviewed one of the interviews I did with him, I asked him what it was like. He says, I'm not visionary the way my dad is. And Subhash is fantastic when it comes to setting up a business, envisioning it. But Puneet is great at running it. He is a professional manager who has, over the years, been treated as an owner, but actually he's run as professionally as any other media company in India. Puneet's team has largely stayed with him. He hires good people. He keeps them with him. To my mind, he would have done as well in any other professionally run media company as he's done with Zee. So that, to my mind, is a big difference. Subhashji is if you ask me what the difference is between Subhashji and Puneet, Subhashji is he's the ideas guy. He loves new areas. He sees things which other people don't do and can get in, take risks and set up. That's a quality which has harmed him and done him good both. Puneet is an implementer. He's an operations guy. He's superb at setting up processes, putting the whole thing. So he scaled up Zee from something like 1,900 crore to almost 8,000 crore in 14 years. So, I mean, there is something to be said for that guy and his ability.
Goenka has, in fact, never discussed how he feels about losing the company that he spent so much time building, or about needing outside approval to run a company that was 1/5 owned by him and his family. Zee may have its share of problems, but it might emerge from them with ease. especially with a leader who stays calm and looks ahead, even in the most difficult situations.
The rise in US bond yield and crude oil price, along with concerns over the Chinese power crunch, dragged the indices lower for the first time in 4 days on Tuesday. The Sensex fell nearly 1,000 points yesterday, while the Nifty 50 fell to 17750 levels intraday. So will the bears tighten the grip on the markets today, or will the bulls wrestle their way back on the Wall Street? Let us find out.
Benchmark indices fell over 0.5% yesterday as analysts downgraded China's GDP growth forecasts following a power crunch. That apart, hardened bond yields also prompted investors to book profits in equities. The US Treasury yield stopped 1.5% on Tuesday, the highest since June, while 10-year government bond yields back home climbed to 6.22%. This, coupled with soaring crude oil prices, pushed the S&P BSE Sensex 410 points down at 59,668, while the Nifty 50 index dropped 106 points to 17,749. The indices had hit a low of 59,045 and 17,576 respectively in the intraday trade on Tuesday, but bounced back sharply amid gains in energy and metal stocks. Now, according to tech charts, the medium-term bias remains positive as long as the index does not breach the 58,000 level. Further, every bounce back above 59,500 may trigger an accumulating pattern for a bigger breakout. As regards Nifty, the bullish outlook will remain intact as long as the support of 17,250 is held. Moreover, a breakout rally may take the index to the uncharted territory of 18,000 and 18,100 if it breaks above 17,800 decisively. Against this backdrop, the immediate support of 58,600 for the Sensex and 17,500 for the Nifty will be tracked by market participants today. On the fundamental side, the outcome of market regulator SEBI's board meeting, stock-specific triggers, and primary market action will guide the markets on Wednesday. The much-awaited initial public offer by Aditya Birla Sun Life AMC will open for subscription today at a price band of Rs 695 to 712. The fourth largest asset management company in India looks to raise 2,768 crore rupees through an offer for sale by its two promoters. Analysts recommend subscribing to the issue given the company's reasonable valuations, strong return on equity, diverse product portfolio, and well-recognized promoter group. Globally, investors will react to US Fed Chairman Jerome Powell's statement to the Senate Banking Committee, ECB President Christine Lagarde's speech at the ECB Forum on Central Banking, and OPEC's World Oil Outlook.
The World Health Organization has so far approved COVID vaccines developed by Pfizer-BioNTech, US pharma majors Johnson & Johnson, Moderna, China's Sinopharm, and Oxford AstraZeneca for emergency use. Now, there is this term, Emergency Use Authorization, or EUA, which is being used for vaccines or drugs that get the drug regulators' nod. But what does EUA for COVID vaccine mean? Let's find out.
It has been almost a year and a half since India registered its first coronavirus case. And since then, we have been hearing new terms that define the pandemic's rise and fall. We have also seen a race across the world to produce a vaccine against this virus. A term which has been and is being used very frequently in the field of vaccines is Emergency Use Authorization, or the EUA. But what is EUA? and when is it given? EUA is given in an emergency to diagnose, treat, or prevent serious or life-threatening diseases or conditions. When marketing authorization is given to an unapproved medical product or the regulator authorizes unapproved use of an approved medical product, it is called EUA. This is unlike full authorization, for which the regulator assesses more elaborate data collected over a longer duration of time. Now, here is what it means for patients. The Indian regulator gave restricted emergency use authorizations to drugs such as remdesivir for treatment of COVID-19. This means that the doctor who prescribes the drug has to explain the risks and benefits to the patient and also clearly state that this drug does not have full authorization. The patient has to sign a consent form indicating that she or he has understood the implications. Now let us look at the process by which a EUA is given. EUA is never granted based on only Phase 1 and Phase 2 clinical trial data, which is necessary to ascertain that the product is safe. EUA is considered only after sufficient efficacy data is generated in a Phase 3 trial. For COVID-19 vaccine, the US FDA has specified that it would consider an application for EUA only if the Phase 3 data shows that it is at least 50% effective in preventing the disease. This data needs to be generated from over 3,000 trial participants who have been followed up for any serious adverse events for at least 1 month after all doses have been given. So why are vaccines being given EUA and not full authorization? The regulator would need long-term immunogenicity data. It means whether the vaccine induces the desired immunity against a disease pathogen from the trials or not. One may produce antibodies against the pathogen now, but it is important to see if the person also develops what we call memory cell immunity. This means that if exposed to the pathogen after a long period of time, he still produces antibodies. At the moment, no vaccine maker would be able to submit this long-term data. Regulators would thus review this interim data from the trials and decide if the vaccine merits an approval for use during the pandemic. Long-term data would be subsequently submitted to the regulator from time to time to get a full authorization. So after a vaccine gets EUA, it is made available to the vulnerable population and eventually in the market for all. Since we are in the middle of a pandemic, the government and policy makers would have a say in the way the vaccine is distributed so as to ensure effective mitigation of the risks to larger populations.
And that's all we have for you today. We will be back tomorrow morning with more news and analysis in our next episode. So stay tuned and thank you for watching.
If you like this video, share it and subscribe to Business Standard. For more news, views and insights, log on to www.business-standard.com. Do also follow us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Telegram and LinkedIn.